Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
It is not without reason that the elves are known as nature's darlings. Just under the elf tree 100 meters away, Lin You could feel a breath of life that was so strong that it was almost substantial, much stronger than the world tree in his territory. It is no wonder that the race of elves was born, and the old elf holding a scepter under the elf tree should be the high priest in their mouth. The horror of the breath exuding from his body is actually not weaker than those 11th Order lords he has seen. Even the elf elders have all reached the 10th Order or more. There are 12 in total, completely invincible to any lord empire. Great and loving God of nature, please listen to the prayers of your most devout people, and send down oracles to guide us in the direction. Under the tree, the high priest shouted loudly, and the voice clearly spread to the ears of all the elves and Lin You around. Every word fell. The elders and deacons who were kneeling under the tree bowed once, their faces full of piety. It's time for the most critical moment. At this moment, Aaron next to him suddenly reminded him. Lin You and the others froze when they heard the words, and they watched intently. As outsiders, they are not allowed to enter the range of the elf tree, so they can only watch from a distance with the lower elves outside. But even so, Lin You could feel that the aura of life on the elf tree was constantly improving. With the sincere prayers of the high priest and elders, a green halo that turned into reality fell from the tree. Though, suddenly, there was a loud bang. The entire forest of elves suddenly began to vibrate violently. A pure aura of life, centered on the canopy of the elf tree, surged out towards the surroundings, turning into a circle of ripples in the air, spreading out towards the periphery of the forest. All the people in the forest were shocked by this vast scene and stopped, looking in the direction of the elf tree. What a strong breath of life! Could it be that the elves have started offering sacrifices again? I heard that it seems that sacrificial activities will only be held when a major event occurs. Isn't something really going to happen? I really want to go in and see, but unfortunately no other races can enter in the depths of the forest. The people in the Imperial Forest were talking a lot, all speculating about what happened, and those elves who were responsible for guarding the city also stopped, one by one, and prayed sincerely in the direction of the Tree of Elves. After that, rays of light emerged from them, rising into the sky. From various positions in the elf forest, they turned into threads and converged toward the elf tree, forming an extremely spectacular scene above the forest. Is this the sacrificial activity of the elves? Lin You stared blankly at the sky, the stream of light that was constantly gathering. I was amazed. I didn't expect that. I was fortunate enough to see such a spectacle, and it was a worthwhile trip to watch it from such a close distance. Only he didn't notice when the falling stars wrapped him. The mark on the back of his hand also began to light up with a dim light, echoing the brilliance of the elf tree. On the contrary, the flower essences flying in the air seemed to be guided by some kind of guidance, suddenly separated from the Tree of Elves, and flew towards him. What happened? The elves raised their heads and looked at these abnormal flower essences. Even the high priest and a group of elders and deacons in the central position turned back one after another, with doubts in their eyes. Although the flower essence does not have the wisdom like the elves, it has a very strong spirituality. The reaction at this time must have found something which made them curious. Those little things, shouldn't they be flying towards us? On the periphery of the sacrifice, Manga uttered a sentence stupidly, because he found that the direction those flower essences were flying seemed to be where they were. And then, under the gaze of him and all the elves, those flower essences really came outside and stopped above their heads. No, it should be parked above Lin You to be exact. While laughing and laughing, he continued to dance around him, attracting everyone's eyes at once. Lin You was also stunned. He stared blankly at the flower essence above, and the eyes that seemed to be real around him. Totally did not expect this to happen. Human race. The high priest's eyes are deep, as if penetrating everything. The other elders looked at Lin You with curiosity, and the 3 elders in the team also recognized Lin You at once, and immediately showed joy. It's you. You are finally here. His voice was not too loud, and immediately attracted the eyes of the elves. Do you know this human race? Asked the high priest Tandan. Yes, high priest, he is the human race I told you before, who received the gift of Mother Nature. The 3 elders replied respectfully. Unexpectedly, as soon as his words fell, the surrounding elves caused a commotion. Parker, are you telling the truth? How can the gift of the Mother Nature come to a human race? This is impossible, the elders exclaimed again and again, and looked at Lin You in the distance again. Lin You was also flustered by them. After all, these are all existences above the 10th Order, and they can be destroyed at will. Only the high priest's expression remained unchanged, and the crutches were slightly lifted. and Lin You was enveloped by an invisible force and slowly flew up. Lin You. Magun chased after him anxiously. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Lin You turned around to stop him. If the opponent's strength wants to kill him, there is no need for such trouble at all. Just move a finger. So he was relieved and let that power take him under the Tree of Elves to the Elders. But at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A dazzling light burst out from the mark on the back of his hand. Buzz. There was another violent sound. A vast and boundless green beam of light, centered on the elf tree, rose into the sky and rushed straight into the endless sky. At this moment, even the high priest was moved. His eyes were fixed on the mark on the back of Lin Yu's hand. Immediately afterwards, the space around him suddenly distorted, and a beautiful figure wearing a crown slowly appeared. Her Majesty the Queen. The high priest and the other elves were shocked, and hurriedly knelt down and saluted. Exemption. The gentle and elegant voice reverberated in everyone's ears. As if there was some kind of magic, they subconsciously got up and stepped aside. The elf queen was surrounded by the breath of life, and there was a hint of surprise on that beautiful face that eclipsed everything around her. Unfortunately, Lin You was being hit by a huge aura at this time, and he couldn't take care of others at all, let alone the arrival of the elf queen. He didn't give him a chance to think about it at all, and under the pull of that power, rays of light had already lit up beside him. The royal troops that were supposed to be in the territory were forcibly summoned one by one and appeared under the Tree of Elves. What? The elf queen let out a small yawn, and her expression suddenly changed. Not to mention the other elves, all of them were shocked. Royal blood. How could it be? How can that be? Royal blood. That is the power of blood that only the elf kings of all dynasties can have. It can be said to be the supreme existence in the elves. But now there are 6 at once, so how can they not be shocked? Especially the flower essence with the crown on his head made them feel like they wanted to surrender. The surrounding flower essences even swarmed up, flying around it, as if they were surrounding the king of flower essences. This time, the elves finally understood why these flower essences surrounded this human race. In the distance, Magin and others had a ghostly expression, not to mention the residents outside the Forest of Elves. All of them were stunned by the sudden and spectacular sight, and looked up at the sky one by one. Then under the watchful eyes of all, the light on the elf tree continued to gather, condensed into a radiant thing in the sky, and slowly descended downward. In the end, the thing fell under the Tree of Elves, along the beam of light, and floated quietly in front of Lin You, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. This is Godhead. The elf queen's eyes narrowed slightly, and she could see the identity of such a thing at a glance. It is a godhead. And it's still a complete godhead. The high priest was equally shocked in his heart. The Tree of Elves would actually condense the godhead for a human race. You know, this is a scene that will only appear when the elf king is born. Could it be that this human being is the incarnation of the Mother Nature on the mainland? However, they didn't wait for them to think about it. The natural imprint on the back of Lin Yu's hand has slowly floated www.lightnovel.com and condensed into profound runes in the air. The oracle of the Mother Nature. The high priest trembled all over. How dare he think too much? And quickly interprets the information of the rune. As the high priest in the elves, he is also the only one who can understand oracles. The reason for this is precisely because when each high priest is officially appointed, he will be blessed with the seal of the god of nature and can communicate with him only. When the high priest read the information on the oracle, his face changed suddenly. What's wrong? A question from the elf queen came from the side. The elders also looked at him curiously. Your Majesty, that thing has awakened. The high priest's face was pale, his feet staggered, and his feet were almost unsteady. Fortunately, several elders responded in time and held him up, but they didn't know what to say. Only the elf queen had a solemn expression, as if she had known for a long time that this would be the outcome, and a trace of sadness flashed across her beautiful face. Sure enough, still can't escape this fate. Your Majesty, what should we do? The high priest asked again. Does Mother God have any other instructions? Yes. The high priest nodded heavily. In addition to explaining this matter, there is a sentence in the oracle. What? The time of destruction is also the time when the fire of life burns. The fire of life. The elf queen whispered. Her eyes could not help falling on Lin You and the godhead in front of him. In the end, she dodged and disappeared in place. I leave, and this human race will be handed over to you, and I will entertain you. As ordered. The high priest respectfully responded and bowed down again. I do not know how long it has been. When Lin You opened his eyes, the light around him had already dissipated. As far as the eye can see, there is only a colorful crystal block floating quietly in front of him, and its shape is constantly changing. This is Godhead fragments. Lin You was shocked, and the whole person was stunned in place. But in the next second, his expression suddenly changed wrong. This is not a godhead shard. Ordinary godhead fragments, shaped like colorful glass, shining with colorful light. But inside the crystal, there is chaos. But the godhead in front of him now is completely different. The colorful rays of light are even more condensed. Inside the crystal, there is a tree-shaped phantom. Even the intensity of the power of rules is not comparable to a single fragment. Could it be that this is a complete piece of godhead? Lin You was shocked and quickly checked the information of the godhead. Name, godhead, plant department, level 11. Introduction. A divine object that contains divinity can activate various powerful abilities after fusion. Note, due to insufficient levels, the specific information cannot be viewed, and the conditions of use are not met. Truly a complete godhead, and it's still level 11. Lin Yu's pupils shrank to the extreme, completely unaware of what happened. When he looked around again, the elves and his troops were no longer there, leaving only the high priest with a cane standing beside him, staring at him intently. "You're awake?" the high priest asked in a low voice. Lin Yu's complexion changed, almost a conditioned reflex, got up and stormed out, widening the distance between the two. But what surprised him was, the high priest did nothing to him, but stood there with a calm expression. "Don't worry, the godhead in your hand is useless to me." Useless? Isn't the high priest of the 11th order? Why do you say that this godhead is useless to him? Lin You was extremely surprised, but he also knew that if the other party wanted to do something, he would not have any ability to resist. The reaction just now was just a conditioned reflex. When he came back to his senses, he looked around and asked, "Where are the others? Where have they all gone?" "They were all called away by me, and your dwarf friends have also rushed back to the dwarf kingdom, and said that they will come to find you after a while." "Gone?" "Well, you were infused with the divine power of the Mother Nature just now, and temporarily lost consciousness, so they left first." Lin You was silent, because he found that the sky outside had completely darkened. It seems like a long time has passed. He thought that it was only a few minutes, but he didn't expect it to be so long. Seeing that the surrounding area was empty, he immediately looked at the high priest, and opened his mouth slightly. "You want to ask about this sacrifice, right?" The high priest seemed to know what he wanted to say and was the first to speak. "Yes." Lin Yu nodded directly. He has too many doubts in his heart now, and he wants to get answers. As the high priest of the elves, the other party should know a lot of things. But unfortunately, the high priest didn't mean to tell him more, but said, "Tantan, with your current strength, some things should not be known too early. When your strength is up, you will understand even if I don't need to say it." "Have to?" Old Riddler. Lin Yu was not reconciled. He raised the godhead in his hand again, and said, "And what about this godhead? You can always talk about it, right?" For some reason, he always felt that this matter was not simple, otherwise it would be impossible to make such a big noise. This feeling of being full of doubts, like the feeling of being stuck in his throat, made him feel a little uncomfortable, and he always wanted to ask something. Fortunately, regarding the godhead, the high priest did not deceive him. After silently looking at the godhead in his hand, he said, "That piece of godhead is formed by the condensed power of the elf tree, the divine power of the elf tree." "That's right," the high priest said calmly. "The tree of elves has existed since the birth of this continent, contains a very large amount of divine power, and it is also the foundation of our elves' survival. Although I don't know why I chose you as a human race, since it is the guide of the elf tree, then you can take it well, and you will be able to use it when you reach the 11th level. But now you are at the 11th level. Don't you need this godhead even more?" Lin Yu was even more puzzled. His understanding of the godhead is still too lacking. "I only know that it is something that is needed to upgrade after the 10th order, and it can only improve the strength, and I don't know anything about the others." The high priest also seemed to see his doubts, and shook his head slightly. "The godheads of lords and cultivators are not common, and my current godhead is the same as the one in your hand, so there is no way to integrate the second piece." "Why?" Lin Yu was stunned for a moment. "The reason is very simple, because if you want to continue to upgrade in the 11th order, you must integrate the complete godhead of 10 different attributes, and the same is true for your lords." Boom! Lin Yu roared in his heart. His eyes widened. To upgrade to the 12th level, it actually requires the integration of the complete godheads of 10 different territories, instead of just 10 godheads. Although he had expected that it would be extremely difficult to upgrade after the 10th rank, he did not expect it to be so difficult. After the 10th level, it is extremely difficult to kill the same level. There are even 10 lords of different territories. It was beyond his imagination. But before he could return to his senses, the voice of the high priest came again. "To rise from the 9th level to the 10th level, you need a piece of godhead, and to rise from the 10th level to the 11th level, you need to fuse 10 pieces of godhead to condense a complete godhead that matches your own attributes in the body." Which is the same piece in your hand? The high priest nodded slightly, and his eyes were a little distant. It seemed that he recalled the hardships he had when he upgraded to the 11th rank and became the high priest of the elf tribe. However, he didn't know that Lin You had already fused to godhead fragments. After being silent for a while, he continued, the complete godhead condensed by each 11th order is the same as its own attributes. If you want to break through the last layer of shackles and reach the 12th level, you need to integrate 10 complete godheads with different attributes. Whether it is a lord or a cultivator, it is the same. You should understand now, right? After speaking, the high priest looked at Lin You silently. Although he didn't understand why the elf tree and Mother Nature chose this human race, he could still answer such questions in detail. After all, if that prophecy is true, the human race in front of him is likely to play a vital role, so he cannot ignore it. And his voice also brought Lin You back to his senses, and a look of shock appeared on his face. This was the first time he had heard such detailed information about Godhead. There is bound to be some shock in my heart. No wonder. It is no wonder that the number of great emperors is so rare. It turns out that this is the case. So to say, if he collects 10 Godhead fragments with his own efforts in the future, and condenses the complete Godhead of the plant system, can he take this one in his hand, and exchange it for Godheads with other attributes? All of a sudden, he was equivalent to obtaining to complete Godheads, and he was far ahead of other lords. It can even be said that it has opened up the road to the 11th order. His trip to the Elf Empire this time, sure enough, it didn't come in vain. Okay, I've finished asking. It's getting dark now. You can rest in the tree house over there for a night. I've already asked someone to arrange it for you. The high priest did not give Lin You a chance to think too much. After dropping a sentence, he flashed and disappeared in place. The attitude is still the same as before, a little cold, but it has also become a lot more friendly. Lin You didn't think much about it. Led by a few elves outside, they soon came to a treehouse, where they simply ate something and went to rest. Early the next morning, Lin You was escorted by a team of elves and left the depths of the forest. After all, as a human being, he was not allowed to stay in the range of the elf tree for too long, so he had to leave here first. This is the rule, and he has nothing to say. But compared to the coldness of the high priest, the ordinary elves treated him much better, and even gave him a few jars of elf flower brew and secret berries. Read novel. It must have been the high priest's command to them. It's just a pity that Lin You still couldn't see the elf queen after all, and he felt a little regretful. Okay, I'll take you here. The teleportation array is right in front. You can go back to the sanctuary first, or you can stay in the city for a while. The person responsible for seeing them off was the male elf Aaron, who showed them yesterday, and he was relatively familiar with Lin You. Originally, it only needs to be sent to the outer area of the forest, but he has been sent to the vicinity of the teleportation array before stopping, which is considered very conscientious. And along the way, Lin You also inquired a lot about the kingdom of dwarves. When he learned that it was just friction between tribes and there was no war, he finally felt relieved. I plan to go back to the territory first, and then come back to see the situation, that's all. Saying goodbye to Arlen and the few elves who saw him off, he walked into the teleportation array, and teleported directly back to the sanctuary. Fly all the way in the direction you came from. It took more than 2 hours to finally arrive outside Shifang Pavilion, and just happened to meet Lu Zengxing, who was arranging loading outside the store. Young Master Lin, you've come to the fore. Have the affairs of the dwarves been handled properly? Seeing Lin You appear, Lu Zengxing immediately dropped the things in his hand, and hurriedly greeted him. Well, it's done for the time being, so I'll stop by and have a look. Lin You rolled over and jumped off the back of the Demon King Dragon. That's right. Yesterday afternoon, I had already bought an SSS level artifact, and I was looking for an opportunity to give it to young Master Lin. I didn't expect you to come. You bought it so soon. Lin Yu's eyes lit up. It seems that a large number of SSS level secret treasures have appeared recently, making acquisitions much easier. Then he was willing to stay, and under the surprised gazes of the customers in the store, he walked into the inner hall with Lu Zengxing to discuss the secret treasure until half an hour later. He just came out of it, and in his hand, he also has a precious secret treasure that can be used by plants. Army treasure, unyielding will, treasure type, special, treasure level, SSS level. Treasure effect, when you are fatally wounded, there is a 40% chance of not dying, and 1 point of physique is forced to remain for 5 seconds. Introduction. The secret treasure used to strengthen the arms can be used in the base of the arms, and only a single type of arms can be strengthened. That's right. It is the enhanced version of 5 seconds real man. This secret treasure should be the E-level secret treasure that Lin You obtained in the Battle of 10,000 Realms before, an enhanced version of Unyielding Heart. Not only has the trigger probability increased, but the effect has also become much stronger, directly from dying after 5 seconds to retaining 1 point of constitution for 5 seconds. That is to say, as long as you can milk them back with healing skills within these 5 seconds, they will not die, equivalent to a chance to trigger invincible skills. But the problem is that he now has more suitable secret treasures, for the arms that are suitable for this treasure. The natural bulwark of the Dryad, the despair of the moss, the destructive dragon fire of the pea, the healing protection of the flower spirit, and the final strike of the piranha. They are all treasures with very high compatibility. After thinking about it, I can only temporarily give this secret treasure to the cactus boxer, who is also a melee arm. After all, many of his arms have no secret treasure bonus, and it can be improved a little bit. In addition to this secret treasure, Lu Zengxing also helped him acquire 100,000 units of magic powder, which just used up the magic energy he had left behind. As such, as long as he buys 2 more large power cores from those mechanical lords, he can build 2 more magic airships and open more routes. Let's go back first. Lin You greeted the Demon King Dragon under him, then flew straight off the ground and hurried back towards the floating archipelago, but didn't notice, since he walked out of Shifang Pavilion, someone has been watching his movements. Not long after he took off, 2 figures riding the magic weapon followed behind him one by one, and the speed was so fast that they came to him in a blink of an eye. Okay. Lin You frowned and finally realized something was wrong. In the sky in the center of the sanctuary, there are indeed many flying troops and magic weapons on the way, but the 2 people who suddenly appeared are obviously rushing towards him. And from the perspective of momentum and speed, they are at least 9th order practitioners. Are you being watched? Lin You was surprised. The cultivators in the sanctuary who will stare at him are nothing more than because of his contacts with Shifang Pavilion, or the treasures on his body. After all, when he was just welcomed into Shifang Pavilion by Lu Zengxing, he didn't do much to cover up. It would be easy if he wanted to investigate as predicted. As soon as his guess fell, the 2 cultivators quickly flew to his side, attacking from left and right, blocking his path. Friend, come with us, someone wants to see you. The one on the right stepped on the flying sword, and the old man with a more solid momentum said in a low voice, "Which force are you from?" Lin Yu's expression remained unchanged. "You'll know when you go with us. I hope you don't make us embarrassed." The middle-aged man on the left followed closely. His words sounded a little tough. After all, the 2 of them are 9th rank, but Lin You is only 7th rank. Did you invite someone like that? Lin Yu sneered in his heart. Today is different from the past, facing 9th order cultivators. He is completely true. The other party is obviously not good, so he doesn't have to give a good face. As soon as his mind moved, the Demon King Dragon fluttered his wings, and shook the 2 away, and then activated the Swift Shadow skill to suddenly accelerate, and fly towards the floating islands. The 2 cultivators stabilized their bodies, their faces gloomy. Chase. Without thinking too much, he directly drove the magic weapon, and went straight to catch up with Lin You. The intense scene of chasing and fleeing immediately attracted pedestrians on the street to look up at the sky. What's the matter? Why is someone fighting in the sky? It seems that someone is being hunted down. Am I right? 2 9th orders are chasing a 7th order. It was even targeted by 2 9th orders, and the 7th order is afraid that it will suffer. In the sanctuary, although there are guards from the 3 empires to maintain order, they are not strict. As long as you don't worry about messing with people you shouldn't mess with, or messing with high-level existences nearby, you can easily escape even if you kill someone on the street. So when I saw the chase in the sky, no one wanted to get involved, just watching from a distance. Some felt sorry for Lin You. It's not good to provoke anyone, and it actually provokes 2 9th order powerhouses. What's the situation? Why did that guy suddenly turn around? Unexpectedly, an exclamation suddenly rang out from the crowd. Everyone who was watching the play was stunned for a moment, and found that the giant plant dragon, that was escaping fast in front was actually circling in the air, and turned around to meet the 2 who were chasing. Is he crazy? A 7th order actually wants to fight head-on with 2 9th orders. He doesn't want to live, does he? There was a huge exclamation in the street. Everyone was attracted by this sudden change, and felt that Lin You was seeking his own death. Available in the next second, something that shocked them to the extreme happened. Boom. Only a muffled sound was heard, and the whole sky shook violently. A pea exuding terrifying power, wrapped in a scorching dragon flame, swept across the sky and attacked the 2 9th order men. What? The complexion of the 2 9th orders changed greatly, and they subconsciously wanted to drive the magic weapon to escape. But all this happened so suddenly, and Lin You suddenly turned back to shorten the distance between them. It was almost impossible to prevent. Bang! What? A shrill scream, accompanied by a cloud of bright red blood, exploded in the sky. The middle-aged man who stepped on the magic weapon of the wind was instantly pierced through his abdominal cavity and shot to death on the spot. Along with the corpse, it fell from the sky and crashed to the ground. The pupils of the remaining old man suddenly shrank to the extreme, and a storm surged in his heart. A ninth-order cultivator, whose strength is not weaker than him, was instantly killed by a seventh-order. Fright, as well as horror, flooded his entire body in an instant. How dare you think too much? Immediately urge Phaeacian to turn the direction, pick up the magic weapon of the companion, and quickly flee to the other side. The speed is fast, 3 points faster than before. Unexpectedly, a cold cry suddenly came from behind him. Go back and tell your master that this is just a lesson. The old man trembled all over. His breath was almost unsteady, and he fell from the flying sword. But how does he know? The terrifying blow just now. Lin You couldn't use it a second time, in a short period of time. It was just to scare him. And with Lin Yu's speed, it's impossible to catch up with him. If he's going all out at this time, it's really hard to deal with. But luckily, the one-shot kill just now was too powerful, and the old man was already frightened, and he didn't dare to pursue any more. When he was far away, Lin Yu gradually frowned, his eyes solemn. The blow just now, he clearly aimed at his chest, but the opponent was able to avoid it with speed in such a short period of time. And he also noticed that high-level cultivators basically have body protection chi. The cannon's attack fell on it, and there was an obvious pause. If he were a low-level cultivator, he would have been smashed into two parts by the impact. It seems that cultivators can't be calculated according to basic attributes. It is also necessary to take into account various means of improving attributes. Let's go. After whispering to the demon king dragon below him, he turned around and continued to fly to the floating islands. The street below was silent. Those passers-by watching the play stared at the direction in which he disappeared. Gollum, several practitioners who were in the fighting position couldn't help swallowing. Oh, I read that right? A ninth order was killed just like that. What a powerful attack method. I was almost out of breath just now. What kind of attack is that? It's so terrifying. I just saw a flash of red light, and then the man died. Those two guys provoked people who shouldn't be provoked. Arguments echoed in the streets. Everyone was shocked by the sudden battle just now. There were even many people who came specially from other places to find out. But I don't know. At this time, the ninth order old man had already fled back to the Wanbao building, and went back to report the situation. Trash. I asked you to invite people, not to rob people. Look at what you have done. Ji Hongfa's face was ashen. Looking at the old man, who was half kneeling in front of him, the roar almost spread throughout the inner hall. He has been running Wanbalu for so long. How can he keep such a blind thing? Second master, forgive me. We didn't know he would be so powerful. The old man obeyed and did not dare to contradict. I don't know. Can I solve it with just one sentence? Ji Hongfu slapped the table next to him. The old man's heart jumped, and he raised his head carefully. Then what should we do now? What else can I do? Go and make amends. If you don't get forgiveness, don't come back. Ji Hongfu felt that hatred in his heart. It was not easy for him to investigate the identity of the noble person behind Shifang Pavilion. I was thinking of inviting over to have a relationship, but the two subordinates turned out to be so invisible and offended each other. Sure enough, the comfortable days during this period have raised them all, and even listened to half of what he said, which really made him angry. If it weren't for the time to employ people, he would have wanted to kill this guy directly the other side. Lin Yu didn't know what happened in Wanbao building. At this time, he had already returned to his own territory through the teleportation function of the floating archipelago to sort out this harvest. This trip, he can say that he has gained a lot. Not to mention the trouble of unraveling the mark, he also obtained a complete piece of godhead. He also received the courtesy of the elves, and gave him a lot of special products of the elves. I just don't know how the situation on Mugen's side is going, whether it's going well or not. Originally, he also wanted to visit the dwarf kingdom, but considering that he is a foreigner, it is not easy to intervene in other people's internal struggles, so he finally gave up this plan. Another point is the divine power infusion mentioned by the elf high priest. He hasn't felt any significant changes in his body until now. Is it filled with loneliness? Thinking of this, he began to seriously examine his body, and various things on his body to see if he could find anything unusual. Baoming book. Hey, what is this? Suddenly, Lin Yu was stunned for a moment. Accidentally discovered that the natural origin in personal space seems to be different from before. Seems like bigger. Lin Yu still doesn't understand the function of the natural origin. Ask other 7th order lords. They only say that they are used to upgrade the territory. But even the territorial essence used to upgrade the territory at the low level has many functions. The function of upgrading the territory alone is a bit petty for a name as tall as the source of nature. And this trip to the Elf Empire has actually changed the origin of nature. This is what Lin You didn't expect. Out of curiosity, he took out the source of nature and checked its information. Name, natural origin, activated. Level 7. Progress, 100%. Introduction. It is necessary to upgrade the territory. After collecting enough sources, it can be successfully activated. Note: the source can be obtained by killing monsters above the boss level. Full of progress. Lin You looked startled. He remembered that before he went to the Elf Empire, the progress of his natural origin was only over 40%. Why is it suddenly full? Is it because of divine infusion? But before he could think about it, a reminder suddenly sounded in his mind. The power of the source has been successfully activated. Do you want to use it? What's the situation? Can it be used directly? Lin You was amazed, hesitated for a moment, and then directly chose yes. Next second, the natural origin light ball in his hand burst into a dazzling light, slowly flew up, and then merged into his body at the same time. The world tree in the territory also lit up with a large amount of brilliance, instantly illuminating the entire territory. Lin Yu's spirit roared. He just felt an unseen force pouring into his body, nourishing his soul, and making his connection with the world tree clearer, as if the world tree was him, and he was the world tree. Immediately afterwards, the chaos in his mind exploded, turning into a chaos space 10 meters in diameter. The gray light is constantly flowing, like the beginning of the world. Then, a small tree tooth with a strong breath of life suddenly burst out of the ground, and appeared in the center of the space, instantly filling the entire chaotic space with vitality. It also made Lin You tremble and wake up. Congratulations! The source space has been successfully opened. Unlock the skill, Soul Field. Soul Field, passive. The power of the soul deepens the connection between the Lord and the core of the territory, forming a soul field around it, enabling allies and the Lord within the range to gain territory bonuses, and the size of the range is related to the size of the source space. Original space. The soul world opened up by the power of the original source is used to strengthen the Lord's soul. The stronger the soul power, the larger the space, and the more unlocking abilities. A series of prompts directly blinded Lin You, but he reacted quickly. Isn't this peculiar ability similar to his deceitful willow soul incarnation? The only difference is that its influence range will change with the size of the source space, and it will also be effective on the Lord itself. This is much stronger than Willow's skills. After all, the Willow is only a rare unit, no matter what. It seems that after the high level, the soul of the Lord is getting stronger and stronger, and it will gradually replace the core of the territory. This was something Lin You didn't expect at all, but if you think about it, it makes sense. Before the 7th level, the Lord's soul power is too weak, and he can only rely on the core of the territory to open various territorial functions. After level 7, when the soul power reaches a certain intensity, it begins to gradually become independent and upgrade step by step. When you reach the 10th level, you can completely get rid of the shackles of the core of the territory and make yourself the real core. He said it was too stupid that the relic of the territory could only take effect within the territory. In the end, I didn't expect it to be because I didn't reach my level. But this way, other lords can also gain territorial gains outside. So wouldn't his advantage of the willow be gone? It hurts to think about it. No wonder Yan Lai and their troops are so fierce. It turned out to be because of the blessing of the territory. This is okay to say at the 7th level. Most lords haven't collected enough source progress. But after reaching the 8th level, that is, all the lords have opened the source space and obtained the territorial gain. In other words, his only advantages are the fragments of the godhead, the halo of the tidal wave, and the symbiotic moss. Although still strong, it has shrunk a lot. But the good news is that he himself also got the territorial gain. All attributes are increased by 16%. And recovery speed is increased by 20%. The strength improvement of nearly 20% is quite useful to him. I don't know if there are more advanced territorial relics after the 8th order. If there is, I can't say that I have to get a better one. After all, his holy artifact is not much stronger than that of other lords. Think about it. Lin You sank into his mind, and began to look at the source space that appeared in his body, and the small tree tusk. Origin, Tree of the World, sapling. Category, plants. Range, 10 meters. Ability, soul domain. Introduction, the soul is condensed and grown to a certain extent. It can evolve into a world, and it needs the power of the source to irrigate. The initial range of the source space is only 10 meters. And the interface is also very simple, only a few simple pieces of information. Compared with the core of the territory, it is still a little worse. It is estimated that it is necessary to kill monsters to obtain the power of the source, so that the tree can grow slowly. Increase the scope of space, and then unlock more functions. This made Lin You a little puzzled. The power of faith can increase his physical strength. The power of the source can increase the strength of his soul. One of these two powers comes from the territorial people, and the other comes from monsters. And I don't know, what is the relationship between them? There is also the origin space that suddenly appeared. What will it evolve into later? It seems that there is a chance to ask those high-ranking lords in the future, so as not to accidentally take a detour. Thinking of this, Lin You closed the interface, rode the Demon King Dragon and left the territory, and went outside to check the situation of the flying dock. After several days of capital investment and massive expansion, at this time, the outside of the flight dock has already taken shape, and a prototype of a large commercial market has begun to be established. On the square of the dock, there were many merchants, practitioners, and people who came here eagerly, waiting eagerly. Come on, the airship is back. Suddenly, there was a shout from the crowd. In the distant sky, a huge black shadow broke through the clouds. In the midst of the rumbling sound of the engine's propulsion, it slowly flew towards Huangsha City. It is a magical airship that has been rushed back from other cities. Seeing that the airship was about to land, all the 200 passengers on board ran out to the side of the ship to look at the vast forest below. Is this the Yellow Sand City? What a spectacular city, built in a forest. I thought it would be a small border town, but I didn't expect it to be so prosperous. I heard that a very magical food is sold here. This time I have to buy some to go back. Looks like we're on the right track. The passengers on the boat were amazed and surprised by the huge scale of Huangsha City. It seems to be much more prosperous than they imagined. If you count the flying dock commercial area outside the forest, it is even close to catching up with a medium-sized city with a population of several 100,000. It is not an exaggeration to call it the forest capital of the Principality's frontier. In amazement, the speed of the airship gradually slowed down and landed smoothly on the docking position of the flight dock. Then there was a rush of people, and the shouting continued. The crowd excitedly got on and off the boat, which made the entire flight dock lively, and also let the ***** team on the boat relax for a while. The man in charge of sailing was the first group of men in Huangsha City who had helped Lin You dig canals, named Huang Jin. Because of his extraordinary talent for equipment, Xu Zhong was promoted to the captain of the magic airship. It can be said that he has soared into the sky, and he has become a face-to-face figure in Huangsha City. After docking the airship, Huang Jin walked out of the cockpit under Evrion's envious gaze. I heard that the treatment in Huangsha City is very good, especially for this newly opened airline team. The treatment is so good that everyone is envious. As long as you join the airline ***** team, you can directly obtain a set of Tier 8 equipment. There are also monthly magic energy allowances, and various bonuses in Huangsha City. I don't know how many times stronger than those who work in other cities. Not to mention the captain in charge of flying the airship. One by one has become the object of the people's flattery. It can be said that the scenery is infinite. Even when walking, I feel the wind blowing from the soles of my feet, which is majestic. This makes Huang Jin always happy. I am glad that I chose to stay in Huangsha City at the beginning, and built a city for the Lord, in exchange for today's scenery. Now he is already the captain of a boat, and he leads a team of powerful practitioners. It is not an exaggeration to say that he has reached the pinnacle of his life. Every time he thinks of this, Huang Jin can't help but puff out his chest, showing a trace of pride. But at this time, out of the corner of his eyes, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure flying from a distance, and his footsteps suddenly stopped. "What's the matter, Captain?" the accompanying practitioner asked curiously. But what answered him was Huang Ren's exclamation, "It's the Lord. The Lord is here. Let's go meet him." Before the sound fell, the person had already run off the airship, and hurriedly ran towards the shadow. Seeing this, the other cultivators were also shocked, and hurriedly followed. Not for a while, a well-equipped team came to the open space of the flight dock, and waited in a line. Attracting the attention of the surrounding passengers' call, a gust of wind blew, and Lin You rode the Demon King Dragon, and slowly landed into the dock. As soon as he landed, Huang Jin brought a team of practitioners to him. "I have seen the Lord." Almost unanimous shouts came from their mouths. Lin You rolled over and jumped off the back of the Demon King Dragon. Looking at their neat formation, he nodded silently. "No courtesy. I'm just here to take a look." "Who is the person in charge of this airship?" Lord, the little one is." Huang Jin quickly walked out of the queue. "Oh, so it's you. I remember your name seems to be Huang Jin." Lin You still remembered the first group of people in Huangsha City quite clearly, so he recognized Huang Jin at a glance. Huang Jin didn't expect the Lord to remember him, and his face flushed with excitement. "Yes, The youngest is Huangjin. Lin Yu didn't stay on the flight dock for long. I simply asked something about the flight path, checked the construction progress around, and rode the Demon King Dragon back to the territory. Subsequently, he came under the World Tree again to check the recent development of Huangsha City. Since the establishment of the flying dock, the population flow of Huangsha City has increased significantly. However, there is no sign of the population decreasing. Instead, it is slowly increasing. The biggest change is the daily revenue, from 100,000 in the previous paragraph to about 150,000. After deducting various expenses, there is still a surplus of 70,000 or 80,000. I haven't seen it for a while, and the city's liquidity has accumulated nearly 1 million. Faith is relatively stable at around 35 o'clock every day. Counting the faith orbs obtained from the Wanji battlefield before, it has almost reached 2,500 points, and it is only half of the 5,000 points required for the upgrade. However, it should be impossible to upgrade to Tier 8 before the next Wanji battlefield. After going through these days, Lin Yu always felt that something big would happen in the future, so it would be best to raise the level as soon as possible, so as to save time and be tired of dealing with it. Close the interface and look at the sky again. Seeing that noon was over, he didn't go to the Monster Master Plane to explore again. Instead, he used this idle time to teleport to the floating platform and brushed a few low-rated SSS-level secret realms. But unfortunately, after going down 5 times, no treasures were revealed. On the contrary, the cost of tickets has risen to 2.5 million, which is not enough to make ends meet. But there are benefits. For example, after he killed 5 8th Order leader monsters, the world sapling in the source space grew a little more. Even the range of space has been increased to 11 meters, which is not a small improvement. As for the willow tree, considering that sometimes Lin You will lead a team of troops to act separately, it needs the blessing of the territory halo, so I keep it for the time being. In this way, when there are more troops in the future, the willow will also be able to play a role. The most urgent task now is to kill more monsters above the leader, and quickly increase the scope of the source space. Otherwise, the 11-meter range is really too overwhelming. Congratulations to the Lord. The source space has been enhanced, and the new ability, racial talent, has been unlocked. Was thinking. A prompt suddenly sounded in Lin Yu's mind. Have new abilities? Lin Yu looked startled, and quickly opened the source space interface to check it out. Origin, Tree of the World, sapling. Category, plants. Level 7, 11/200. Range, 11 meters. Ability, Soul Domain. Racial talent, Halo. Enable the lords and troops within the range to obtain the corresponding talent blessing of the race, and the effect will be enhanced with the increase of the source space. Introduction. The soul is condensed and grown to a certain extent. It can evolve into a world, and it needs the power of the source to irrigate. Note, click here to expand the talents of each department. As predicted, after the prompt sounds, there is more level information, and a new skill on the interface, and it is also a Halo skill. The notes of the talents of each department are also listed below. Lin Yu was amazed, and hurriedly clicked to check, and then a long row of information interfaces jumped out. Various racial talents. Humanoid. When the equipment and props are strengthened, the effect is increased by 2%. Humanoid. For every 2% decrease in physique, all attributes increase by 2 points. Beast. Attacks have a tear effect, ignoring 2% of the enemy's defense. Insects. Recruitment consumption plus 2%, recruitment limit plus 20. Undead. Defense minus 1%, recruitment limit plus 10%. Plants. Constitution increased by 2%, recovery speed increased by 2%. Mechanical. Magic resistance increased by 2%, range increased by 2%. Element. Attribute restraint effect increased by 2%. Angel. Holy light magic has a repentance effect, and the effect of the next holy light magic is increased by 2%. Demon. The attack has a curse effect, reducing the enemy's all attributes by 2%. Good guy. This is according to the characteristics of each race. Have you started to support? It seems that after reaching the high level, the characteristics of various races finally begin to truly reveal themselves. And this is just the basic property. After the source space becomes larger, the effects of these racial talents will continue to increase. Insects and undead, in particular, have begun to unlock numerical superiority. When the level of the source space is improved, it will take off directly. Other races also have their own characteristics, and they have all been strengthened a lot. All of a sudden, the matter of improving the source space has become the top priority. It's no wonder that he has rarely seen lords above the 8th rank, and he is afraid that they will all go to the depths of the plane to hunt and kill the leader monsters. There is another point that makes Lin You very puzzled. That is the number that appears after the level information, 11,200. Does it mean that his origin space can be raised to a range of 200 meters? I don't know how much the racial halo effect will increase after the space range is full. It seems that we can only know after collecting more source power. Think about it. He turned off the interface, left the secret realm and teleported to the floating islands. It was nightfall now, but there are still many lords gathered on the platform, chatting and spanking, or setting up a stall called asterisk is much more lively during the day. Lin You glanced at the 7th order list when he passed the secret realm steel and found that he had been squeezed to 4th. There was another lord who cleared the secret realm with a 1000 rating, ranking behind Yan Lai and Sita Jian, and the clearance time was obviously shorter than his. It is estimated that these lords are beginning to prepare for the battle of 10,000 realms. He remembered that there were not so many SSS grades on the list last month. It's still a month. Lin You murmured silently, his eyes solemn. Even now, he still remembers the thrill of battlefield number 1 before, especially when he learned that the battle of 10,000 realms was carried out on those continents that had been emptied of luck. His heart became even more complicated. I don't know what the 7th order battlefield will be like, and what kind of enemies will be encountered. The only thing he can do now is to improve his strength as soon as possible. Go back first. Seeing that it was getting dark, Lin You didn't stay for long, and directly teleported back to the territory. After a busy day, it was rare for him to relax, so he went directly to the world tree and sat down, and started to enjoy the dinner just delivered by Lingman. Haha brothers, I finally filled up the power of the source to activate the source space today, and the effect is awesome. What the hell? It's full so quickly. That's only after killing monsters above the leader. Envy, I've been there for a few months, and it's only more than 50%. The 7th order source space can be raised to a maximum range of 100 meters. You still have a long way to go. Sao Nian. What is the origin space? Mengxin doesn't understand. The news on the chat channel kept flashing, and someone was talking about the origin. This kind of situation is rare, and it immediately attracted Lin Yu's attention. It's just that when he saw what the lords were talking about, he couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. 7th order space. The highest is only 100 meters. It's not right. His origin space is clearly marked with a maximum range of 200 meters. Is there a bug? You must know that the size of the source space is directly related to the strength of the racial talent. If his space limit is really double that of others, it will be completely different. Shouldn't this be the hidden reward of divine infusion? Lin You suddenly thought of the spectacular scene when he obtained the source of nature. At that time, he felt that his origin was different from that of other lords. Now it seems that it is really different. This conclusion suddenly surprised him, and at the same time a little strange. Why choose him? Could it be that he is the most handsome of all plant departments? Impossible to think about. But no matter what, it's a good thing for him, and it's too late to be happy immediately. He looked at the chat interface again, and continued to pay attention to the chatter of the lords to see if he could gather more useful information. The following few days, Lin You didn't do anything else. Every day is basically going back and forth between the territory and the main plane of monsters, trying to kill the leader monsters, and collecting the power of the source. He found, basically, every time you kill 5 tier 8 leaders, the range of the source space will increase by 1 meter. At the 7th rank, you would have to kill 10 or so, and the speed of improvement was barely acceptable. The only thing that makes people uncomfortable is the number of boss monsters. As the second area closest to the entrance to the plain, the desert area is basically flooded with a large number of lords every day. Some of the leader monsters even just appeared, or just successfully advanced. They were immediately beaten to death by the crowd, and by the time he arrived, not even Scum was left 6 full days. He only killed 20 tier 8 boss monsters. The improvement of the racial halo was also minimal. It seems that we have to continue to go deeper. On top of a dune in the deepest part of the desert, Lin You stood there fixedly, looking out into the depths of the main plane of the monster. After these 6 days of exploration, he has come to a place thousands of kilometers away from the entrance to the plain. Vaguely, you can already see a gray area in the distance, as well as the long-lost edge of the desert. Yes. At this time, Lin You had successfully passed through the desert area, and came to a brand new area. However, he did not immediately leave the desert and rush there, because he is very clear, the more in depth, the greater the chance of encountering high-level lords and monsters. Although he has 2 life-saving skills, Peace Field and Random Teleportation, he is not sure that those high-level lords will have any means that he does not know, so he has been cautious not to approach. But now the leader monsters in the desert are scarce, so he has to focus on that area again. Forget it. Let's take a look around the periphery first. In the end, Lin You decided to go and have a look first. After a simple repair on the spot, he rushed towards the dark area with the plant army. Gradually, the wind and sand all around began to change to a dark atmosphere that filled the sky, and even the sunlight above the head slowly disappeared. This is a piece of red earth that is festering and dry. Wherever his eyes go, there are scattered withered bones and blood mist scattered in the air. Take a deep breath and smell a rotten smell. In the thick fog around, there were also bursts of whistling wind, and the sound of chewing food, constantly echoing in my ears. Lin You couldn't even help but wonder if people would go mad if they stayed here for a long time. Quick, stop it. It's running over there. Watch out. It's about to attack. Use your defensive skills. Block it for me. In a certain corner of the land of the dead, several 7th Order lords of the immortal realm shouted again and again, commanding troops to surround a group of 8th Order undead dogs and 2 8th Order leaders. Their strength is not weak. Basically, there are hundreds of 8th Orders around everyone, and they have also activated the source space, and their strength has been greatly improved. I saw that the group of monsters was constantly being eliminated under the siege of their troops. Even the 2 8th Order leaders were roaring again and again, unable to break through their defenses, and their bodies were covered with wounds. Haha, very good. By killing these 2 leaders, our source power can be improved again. Be careful, don't let them fight back. Don't worry, there are no lords of other realms here to make trouble, and nothing will happen. Several lords looked happy, and began to let the troops gradually close the encirclement to clear the ordinary monsters around the leader. The lords who can come here are basically not weak, still very confident in his own strength. What's more, they have a total of 5 people now. Even if they encounter an 8th Order lord, they have the power to fight, and they are not worried that someone will make trouble. So gradually, the eyes of several people fell on the 2 leader monsters, ready to kill the leader at any time. Boom! Suddenly, there was a muffled sound. On the rock 100 meters away from them, a red glow suddenly exploded, swiping over their heads with a swoosh, directly smashing the head of one of the undead dog leaders into pieces. Kill the 8th Order leader monster, and get 10,000 magic energy. A pleasant reminder sounded the next second after the kill. Several of the lords of the immortal realm finally reacted, and their expressions changed drastically in an instant. Be careful, someone else is there. Damn, the leader monster was killed by him. Who is it? How dare you asterisk the monsters of our Wuxi realm. Get out of here. In a blink of an eye, the entire arena became a mess. They had no idea that someone would be ambushing nearby and kill their prey from such a distance. Under the horror, they immediately called their respective arms to protect themselves and looked vigilantly in the direction of the attack. But what was left for them was an empty rock and a few strands of sparks flying in the air. How could anyone else be there? Needless to say, the person who shot was naturally Lin You and his cannon, relying on the deadly sniping of cannons to steal chickens from a distance. It is really tried and tested, and many leaders have been killed. Don't give those lords a chance to react at all. After hearing the prompt, Lin You already rode the Demon King long and flew away from the scene. Although he is not weak, he still has little confidence in facing several 7th Order lords and hundreds of 8th Order arms at the same time. After all, these lords have activated the source space, and the troops are blessed by the territory, and they are no longer the weak chickens they encountered before. Although his arms are blessed with symbiotic moss, they are still 7th Order, and their attributes are a little worse than the serious 8th Order, so it's better not to take the risk. After killing the leader monster, his source space finally expanded to 20 meters in size, and the world sapling grew an extra leaf. The racial talent he cares most about is raised to a level of 2.4%. Look like this. This halo effect is not an exponential increase, but a percentage increase according to the size of the source space, so the difference cannot be seen in the early stage. Let's go. Keep looking for prey. After closing the interface, Lin You directly ordered the Demon King Dragon under him to continue searching around the land of the dead. Why is it called the land of the dead? Because the monsters that appear in this area are basically undead, and the whole area is shrouded in a strong sense of death, which has increased the number of undead monsters a lot. But relatively, the number of the 8th Order leader monsters has also increased. The undead dog leader just now was already the 22nd leader he killed, more than the total of the previous 6 days. Proceed at this rate. I'm afraid that it won't be long before the source space can be filled up. Hey, what is that? Stop for a moment. Suddenly, Lin Yu's eyes were drawn to a church-like building in the distance. There is actually a church in the main plane of monsters. Lin You was amazed. Although the church looked dilapidated, It was riddled with dead air, but there are still vague signs of human life here, just like the previous pyramid. Could it be that, before this monster main plane, did humans, or civilizations similar to humans exist? Under the doubts, Lin You didn't care too much, and immediately drove the Demon King Dragon to land on the ground, slowly approaching the church. This church is huge. It is located just below the foot of a hidden mountain, surrounded by a row of rusty iron railings more than 5 meters high, forming a huge courtyard at the foot of the mountain. And the somewhat Western-style church, located in the center of the courtyard, is solemn and majestic, and it has not become unbearable because of its dilapidation. Even the surrounding courtyard gardens can vaguely see the lushness of the original, with traces of flowers and plants everywhere. It's a pity that such a courtyard is now surrounded by a large number of walking undead, making it difficult for people to get close to it. Name: Corrupted Monk. Race: Undead. Level: Level 8. Level A. Strength: 2200, plus 1540. Physique: 2000, plus 1400. Agility: 1910, plus 1337. Spirit: 1920, plus 1344. Skills: Corrupted Claw, Swallow Blood, Corpse Poison. Chaos: all attributes increased by 70%. Introduction: originally a guardian monk of the church, he was infected with death energy for unknown reasons, and mutated into an unconscious undead monster. Name: Corrupted Undead Sacrifice. Race: Undead. Level: Level 8. Level A. Strength: 1820, plus 1274. Physique: 1900, plus 1330. Agility: 1900, plus 1330. Spirit: 2350, plus 1645. Skills: Undead Summoning, Undead Domain, Undead Arrow Rain. Chaos: all attributes increased by 70%. Introduction: originally a priest of the church, he was infected by death energy for unknown reasons, and mutated into an unconscious undead monster. The attributes of ordinary monsters are generally only about 70–80% of the current level upper limit, which is similar to the newly recruited troops. As for the leader monster, the attributes are close to the full value of the current level, which differs according to the attack characteristics. As for the Lord monster, it is directly doubled on this basis, which constitutes the level attribute gap between monsters. Lin You did the math. The average attribute of these two monsters is above 3200, and his 7th Order War Ancient Tree, plus the attributes of Symbiotic Moss can basically reach about 1900 points, counting the 10% of Link's E-Aura, 20% of Godhead Fragments, and 16% of Territory Sacred Artifacts bonus. There are also 5% physique bonuses for Forest Domain, 2% for Racial Talent, 4% for Secret Treasure, and 20% for Qing Gang. There is a total of 3,370 physique points, which is just on par with the level ordinary monsters. This is not counting the 30-second burst of Savage Roar, and the triggering effect of the treasure certainly. It's just a physical bonus. If other attributes are added, his plants will be weaker, and the 8th Order Royal Arms can stabilize these monsters. I'm afraid there will be a lot of losses. After all, he only has about 500 troops, but there are thousands of 8th Orders in this church. I don't know if there will be leaders, or even Lord Monsters in it. Forget it, let's slowly lead them out, and kill them. In the end, Lin You decided to explore this church. It's not because there's any treasure in it. Instead, he took a fancy to the skills of the undead priests, who were wandering in the depths. That's right, this is exactly what he has always wanted to find, the undead summoning and undead domain skills of the undead department. I didn't expect to encounter it in such a place. You know, he now has 10 devouring flowers. Except for the 2 that had already risen to the 8th rank, the others were all skills copied indiscriminately, which were far worse than the undead domain, and could not exert the full power of the self-exploding secret treasure at all. Thinking of this, Lin You directly waved his hand and summoned all the plants. With a flash of light, those undead monks outside the church iron fence also found them, and they all rushed over with roars. Go! Block them! Lin You hurriedly gave orders to the Ancient Tree Legion at the front, lining up in front of them to build a copper wall and an iron wall. Boom, boom, boom. A series of collisions made muffled noises, and a large number of undead monks collided with the Ancient Tree army. In the next second, a green light appeared on the Ancient Tree. The effect of the natural barrier activates. Each time you receive an attack, your physique will increase by 4%. In a blink of an eye, The defense of the ancient tree legion rose to the point where it was equal to the strength of the undead monks, blocking all their attacks. Some even triggered the passive effect of the secret treasure directly because they were attacked too much, and a layer of transparent shield appeared on their body. Ignore all negative states for 10 seconds and reduce damage taken by 40%. The corpse poison originally sprayed on them was immediately excluded, causing only the first damage to them. Good job. Lin You exclaimed loudly. The effect of this SSS-level secret treasure in the face of undead monsters is much better than he imagined. It was only a face-to-face effort, and the undead monk was pressed back. Then, under the frantic attack of other plants, it began to gradually reduce its personnel, and reborn into 8th order undead flowers. However, at this moment, dark clouds suddenly shrouded the sky, and a large corpse poisonous acid rain rained down, covering the entire ancient tree legion. Zzz. A wisp of white eyes appeared on the ancient tree's body. Under the blessing of the secret treasure, it was still corroded into a large gap, and the action became slow. Lin You raised his head, and looked into the distance, and saw that the undead priests were attracted at some point, raising their staffs high and casting skills. This acid rain is obviously caused by them. I didn't expect the power to be so powerful. Group therapy. Don't dare to hesitate. Immediately let the Hua Jing army led by Ling Xi launch group therapy. In an instant, the light of nature shone, covering all the injured ancient trees at the same time. A circular shield appeared around the body of the ancient tree, blocking the acid rain falling from the sky. It is the effect of the healing protection secret treasure. Offset 30% of 1 damage. And every elf envoy activates group healing, and all ancient trees will be covered with a layer of shields, continuing to rise and fall. It was actually equal to the poisonous rain that filled the sky, and no further corrosion damage was suffered. Good chance. Do it. Lin You seized the opportunity and immediately gave orders to the long-range troops and several royal families around him, and began to kill the undead monks who were going. The wild monster king in the sky threw down large pieces of mushrooms with joy, blasting the undead monks out. Go, blow up their backs. Lin You shouted to the wild demon king in the sky. The wild monster king understood, immediately turned around, flew over the undead team, and threw a handful of explosive mushrooms underneath. Boom boom. A violent explosion rang in his ears. Lin You was shocked to find that those undead sacrifices were not dead. Instead, they were guarded by the skeleton soldiers they summoned, shattering the dead bones all over the ground. Cut. Lin You snorted and frowned. The higher the level of the monster, the higher the wisdom. Even know to use summons to resist explosion damage. And he is not very easy to let the wild monster king continue to go deeper, if all the monsters in the handful are drawn out. I am afraid it is not easy to deal with. King Gong. Without hesitation, he shouted straight ahead. When King Gong received the order, he roared up to the sky and launched a savage roar. Suddenly, a red light appeared on all the plants, and the attributes finally overwhelmed the undead monk. The other ancient war trees seemed to receive the signal, and they all started the war and trampled, and rushed into the group of monsters. The natural ancient tree is to summon a large number of dryads, and they converge with the army of skeletons, summoned by the undead sacrifice. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Under the leadership of King Teng, Banshee Vine also followed suit. The vines that covered the entire ground burrowed into the ground, and rushed out from the souls of the undead monks, entangling them all. Coupled with the pea shooter's burst of fire and the fire support of the air exploding mushroom, we finally succeeded in tearing open a hole. Take this opportunity. The 3-blade shadow lions in the team directly activated the swift shadow skill, turning into an afterimage that swept to the rear of the undead sacrifice. Puff. The white blade light swept across a crescent-like arc, easily cutting the necks of several undead sacrifices, allowing their heads to be separated instantly. One-hit kill. Really? To deal with this mage-type back row, you need assassins to cut. Seeing that the other undead priests turned around, and were about to launch an attack on the 3-blade shadow lions, Lin You immediately urged the power of the rules to condense several turtle shield mirror walls in front of them. Crack. A crisp sound. The mirror wall of the turtle shield cracked in response, and was smashed into pieces by the arrow rain. There is still a gap between the power of the 7th order rules and the 8th order. Even with the blessing of the 2 godhead fragments and the territorial halo, it only lasted for a while. However, it was precisely because of this pause that the 3-blade shadow lions had a chance to react, calmly escape from behind the monsters, and return to the team. And this time, the effect of Savage Roar just passed. The momentum of the plants weakened and returned to their original level. But despite this, the outbreak just now also created an extremely favorable situation for Lin You, and hundreds of 8th order undead flowers were resurrected. percent and pound yuan at percent. It was as if he knew he was in a weak spot. At this time, the remaining undead priests on the opposite side suddenly raised their staffs high and chanted a series of complex incantations for a while. The dead undead monks stood up again and turned into skeletons. Together with the open space next to it, the soil was loose, and one by one the Eighth Order skeletons broke out of the ground. In a blink of an eye, it filled the vacancy that had just been killed. Name: Skeleton Knife Axe. Race: Undead. Level: Level 8. Level A. Strength: 1600 plus 1120. Physique: 1600 plus 1120. Agility: 1600 plus 1120. Spirit: 1600 plus 1120. Skills: Slash, Bite, Jump, Chaos. All attributes increased by 70%. Introduction: the most common skeleton in the undead world, with low combat power, but a huge number. Just like the introduction, the attributes of the skeleton soldiers summoned were not high and their skills were not strong, but the number of them gave Lin You a headache. Most importantly, the skeletons themselves are summons. After death, it would be very painful to be unable to be reborn as an undead flower by the undead realm. Sure enough, the undead system is more difficult to deal with as it goes to the back. Lin You had no choice but to let the plants continue to attack and accumulate blood, and frenzy for the ivy. By the way, although the rotting blood of zombies is not as good as fresh blood for its promotion, it is still an improvement, better than nothing. That's all. Under the suicidal self-destruction tactics of the undying flower, it took 20 minutes for Lin You to finally get rid of all the undead monks and undead sacrifices outside the iron railings. On Lin Yu's side, he also lost hundreds of proliferating arms. After all, proliferating troops do not have the blessing of symbiotic moss. Attributes are still lower, but in contrast, the body with the blessing of moss is all safe and sound. Thanks to the natural barriers and desperate treasures, the survivability of the proliferating body has been greatly improved. Go devour those corpses. After checking the situation of the team, Lin You directly instructed the 8 devouring flowers around him to devour the corpses of the undead sacrifice. After chewing for a while, the ear also heard the prompts of successful swallowing. Swallow successfully, get the skill, undead domain. Swallow successfully, get the skill, undead domain. Swallow successfully, get the skill, undead domain. 7 consecutive prompts, all of which copied the skills of the undead domain. But what Lin You didn't expect was that, at the 8th sound, it suddenly changed. Successful swallowing. Obtain the skill, Rain of Undead Arrows. Due to the type change, the skill is changed to Rain of Corrosive Arrows. Corrosive Arrow Shower. Active. Condense large dark clouds in the sky. Drop a strong corrosive arrow rain, and reduce the enemy's defense by 10% for 10 seconds and cool down for 60 seconds. Sao, did you swallow this skill? And is it a large-scale group attack skill? This is simply a surprise. Lin Yu's eyes lit up. He had seen the power of the undead arrow rain with his own eyes just now. Even the ancient tree army under the blessing of the secret treasure was easily broken, so one can imagine how powerful it is. The most important thing is that it is also a continuous group attack skill. There is also an additional armor-piercing effect. No wonder that the defense of the ancient tree was easily broken through just now. It turned out to be the case. In this case, his devouring plan will be changed. 10 devouring flowers, leaving 5 to copy the undead domain skills, and the rest are changed to corrupted arrow rain, so that it will be much easier for him to cut to the front row in the future. Thinking of this, Lin You immediately let the other devouring flowers continue to devour. Then a series of swallowing prompts sounded. The result surprised Lin You. After all the undead sacrifices were swallowed, there was only one that successfully replicated the corrosive arrow rain skill. Counting the previous one, there are only 2. The probability is a little low. Lin You muttered to himself, frowning slightly. It seems that we need to find another batch of undead sacrifices to swallow. He had no choice but to move forward with the plants and approach the steel fence of the church. I don't know how long this church has been abandoned. A row of steel fences have been corroded to black, and in some places even a large hole has been corroded, looking dilapidated. Lin You reached out and touched the fence, and with a click, it broke directly, which was more brittle than expected. I am afraid that this must have a history of more than 100 years, or even longer. Looking through the fence to look inside, there are almost 600 or 700 undead monks and undead sacrifices wandering among the gardens. The whole courtyard was enveloped by a black air, and it was a little difficult to see the church clearly. But vaguely, Lin You saw two huge figures of nearly 10 meters hovering outside the door of the church. Every time he took a step, there would be a dull footstep, causing the whole ground to vibrate slightly. Is it the leader monster? Lin Yu's eyes lit up. This place is so deadly, and there are so many undead monsters. It is not impossible to have a few leader monsters. Even the gatekeepers are the chief monsters. I'm afraid there are some treasures in this church. He was willing to hesitate, and immediately took the army of plants to look for it, outside the iron fence. After a while, he found a huge eroded hole, which could completely accommodate the passage of plants. However, he did not rush into the courtyard rashly, but through the spiritual connection, the banshee vine is out of the list. Immediately after, a large piece of swimming vine tentacles passed through the fence against the ground, and slowly spread into the courtyard. Roar! At this moment, the undead monks closest to the fence also found them, and suddenly roared, as if they wanted to send a signal to their companions. Go! Of course, Lin You couldn't give them a chance to report. With a low shout, the vines on the ground burst into flames, and with a swooshing sound, they directly wrapped around the bodies of the undead monks, and dragged them out. No matter how hard they struggled, they couldn't break free from the shackles of so many vines. As soon as he came out of the fence, he was immediately attacked by a group of plants, instantly killing him on the spot. Kill the 8th order monster. Get 1000 points of magic energy. Kill the 8th level monster. Get 1012 points of magic energy. Killing an 8th order monster can get around 1000 magical energy, and the amount fluctuates with the monster's strength. Counting those who were killed outside just now, Lin You has already obtained more than 300,000 mana, but the most important thing is his military experience. Under the addition of the Forest Sage, the 7th order arms have basically reached their full value. In addition to the last upgraded cannons, the royal arms also accumulated to nearly 3,000. This is all thanks to the continuous killing of 8th order monsters during this period of time, and it has risen so quickly. The average stats of the royal armies with more than half of the experience have been improved. From the original 2,000 points to 2,023 points, the strength has become much stronger. To know, even if it is a rare unit with full experience, the average attribute is basically this level. Not to mention that the royal arms also have their own powerful skills and innate full value attributes. It is by no means comparable to rare weapons. The only thing that worries Lin You is the upgrade resources of the royal family. If according to what Ji Yanchuang said before, every time after the 7th rank, the upgrade resources will increase geometrically, and he will probably not have so many resources to upgrade the royal family by then. It's fine now, at least I haven't felt it yet. What about after the 9th order? At that time, he can directly recruit the 9th order ordinary arms, but the royal family needs to collect resources to upgrade. I just hope it doesn't require too many resources by then. He can accept 10 times or even 20 times the magic energy, but if the essence of the territory is a bit more difficult. After all, the higher level lords are more difficult to kill, and it is not easy to obtain the essence of the territory. It looks like we need to figure this out as soon as possible. Kill the 8th order monster, and get 996 magic energy. The prompt to kill reverberated in Lin Yu's mind. After more than an hour of wandering and pulling monsters, the last batch of undead monsters finally fell under the attack of the plants. The remaining 3 devouring flowers finally succeeded in replicating the corrosive arrow rain skill. Okay, let's recover first. Lin You glanced through the fence, glanced at the 2 huge shadows outside the church gate, and let the plants begin to recover in place. This time, because the tactics of destroying one by one are used, the loss of arms is not much, and the consumption is not too large. A simple repair, restore the full state. Lin You took the army of plants, through the fence and slowly walked into the courtyard. The dead aura in the courtyard is obviously much stronger than that outside. The visibility was almost reduced to within 100 meters, and it was gray everywhere. Walking in it, there is even a feeling of walking in the underworld. Even if a asterisk of death or a bull-headed horse face with a scythe suddenly appeared, Lin You would not be surprised, nor would he be surprised. Only, when he saw the 2 huge black shadows clearly, his thoughts suddenly changed. Name, Corrupted Butcher. Leader, Race, Undead. Level, Level 8, S level. Strength, 2,500, plus 2,000. Physique, 2,500, plus 2,000. Agility, 2,200, plus 1,760. Spirit, 2,400, plus 1,920. Skills, Devour and Bite. Death Hook, Mutation, Life Contract. Chaos, all attributes increased by 80%. Introduction. The butcher who was originally a church, was infected with death energy for unknown reasons. and mutated into an unconscious undead monster, who obeyed the will of his life, and wandered outside the church. Name: Corruption Hall Sacrificial. Leader: Race: Undead. Level: Level 8, S level. Strength: 2350, plus 1880. Physique: 2250, plus 1800. Agility: 2300, plus 1840. Spirit: 2500, plus 2000. Skills: Blink, surrounded by death chi, devouring black hole. Life contract. Chaos, all attributes increased by 80%. Introduction: It was originally a temple sacrifice in the church. For unknown reasons, it was infected with death energy, and mutated into an unconscious undead monster. It obeyed the will of life and wandered outside the church. Good guy. Really a asterisk of death. A butcher with abscesses all over his body, and a hooked scythe on his shoulders. And a necromancer who was holding a staff, and was wrapped in a strong death chi. This looks like a combination of life-threatening. Isn't it the asterisk of death? And the strange thing is that these two boss monsters have one more skill than the other bosses, and they still have the same name. There is something tricky. Lin Yu's eyes were solemn, and he glanced around. The building of the whole church is still intact. Only one entrance can be entered through the gate. Before you know what's hidden inside, it's better to get rid of these two gatekeeper monsters to avoid accidents. Thinking of this, he led the army of plants to approach the pass carefully under the cover of the flower bed. When they were about 50 meters away, the cannons in the team also aimed at the temple sacrifices wandering on the steps. It's common sense to play in groups first and then row back. But this time, Lin You learned a lot. When the cannon is attacking, directly let the lantern grass activate the vacuum skill, shrouding the cannon in a vacuum environment, and use it to silence the sound next second. Sparks exploded. The P-bullets surrounded by dragon flames suddenly rushed out, turning into a fiery red streamer, and shooting towards the sacrifice in the hall. Bang! Flesh splattered. The unsuspecting temple sacrifice was instantly pierced through the head by this blow. The entire huge body was also carried away by the powerful impact force, crashing into a large wall. However, what Lin You didn't expect was that there was no kill notification sounding in his mind. On the contrary, the corrupted butcher found them, and with a roar, he suddenly jumped into the sky and gave them a blow to the top of Mount Tai. Boom! The whole ground shook violently. With just one blow, the 5 proliferating troops in the front were smashed to death on the spot, and even a huge pit was smashed into the flower bed. Fortunately, Lin You responded in time, and quickly dispersed with the plants, surrounding the fallen corrupt butcher. Attack! With an order, the plants started one after another, and a large range of long-range attacks fell into the deep pit, triggering a series of violent explosions, blasting the entire flower bed into rubble. Roar! Unexpectedly, the corrupt butcher at the center of the explosion erupted again. With a sudden flick of the hook in his hand, he locked the body of an ancient tree in front of him and pulled it into the deep pit. Then, with a big mouth, he directly activated the bite skill. Quickly use your defensive skills. Lin You shouted hurriedly. Even the loss of ordinary multiplied troops is ignored. This is proliferating body and symbiotic moss, and every death is a huge loss to him. How dare you hesitate? Let the symbiotic moss activate the secret treasure skill, and convert all attributes into constitution. Clang! The harsh sound of grinding teeth echoed in his ears. The corrupted butcher's blood pot bit into the moss-covered ancient tree, as if he had bitten a steel plate. It's just an inch in, and it's harder to get in half a minute. And the Banshee Vine team in the back also took this opportunity. The vine quickly wrapped around the corrupted butcher, and rescued the ancient tree from the deep pit. Immediately afterwards, another large range of long-range attacks fell and exploded on the butcher. The vines of the Banshee Vine pulled away in time during the explosion, avoiding the attacking UI, percent and at, pound asterisk and dollar. But at this moment, a complex incantation suddenly sounded in the collapsed wall. The temple priest with only half of his head appeared again, holding the staff high in his hand. A faint thread appeared between it and the corrupted butcher, quickly repairing their injuries. Life is shared. Lin You was shocked, and finally understood the meaning of the extra skills of the two leaders. It is an extremely rare life-sharing skill. That is to say, the lives of these two leaders are shared with each other. Otherwise, he really couldn't explain why the sacrifice in the ruined temple could stand up again. And just when he was surprised, the corrupted butcher in the deep pit also shook off the attack of the plants, roaring out of the deep pit, and crashing into the ancient tree army at the forefront. In order to cooperate with its actions, the temple priest in the distance also recited the incantation, pointed to the place with the densest plants, and a black hole containing terrifying suction suddenly appeared, sucking everything around it crazily. A few proliferating plants couldn't react in time, and they were sucked into the black hole in an instant and smashed into pieces. Don't say it yet. It's nothing to take out these two chief monsters alone. But after they were combined, their strength increased greatly, and Lin You was in a hurry, especially the strong death aura that spreads out from the whole body of the worship in the hall. After the contamination, his plant attributes plummeted by 20%, and his momentum became much weaker. How dare he hesitate? Directly activate the power of the rules, launch a barbaric roar, and a red light instantly wraps himself and all the plants. Don't underestimate his savage growl. Under the blessing of the characteristics of the two godhead fragments, the power is directly increased by 20%, that is, the full attribute is increased by 36%. In the blink of an eye, the momentum of the plant army was pulled back again, and the corrupt butcher was defeated, and he could only rely on life sharing to support. Puff! Lynx's dance of leaves precisely cut the butcher's ankle, and made it fall to the ground. It's now full attack. Lin Yu's eyes were full of light, and he immediately threw all kinds of attack skills with the plants without money. As the most attacking lynxy in the team, at this time, he raised his staff high, and condensed the wood thorns in the air. Whoosh whoosh. The wooden thorn turned into a streamer, and shot straight at the butcher. The power of the wooden thorn supported by the savage roar is terrifying, and it feels like the entire air will be torn apart. But at this moment, something strange happened. The temple priest, who was still chanting the spell in the distance, actually stopped the spell, and a flash fell on the butcher's body. Puff! The sound of flesh being pierced sounded. The corrupt butcher and the sacrifices in the hall were instantly pierced by thousands of arrows and stabbed into a hornet's nest, making the whole scene suddenly quiet. It also left Lin You stunned for a while. It all happened too suddenly. After a while, he recovered from his absence, staring blankly at the two corpses hugging each other, in shock. What happened in the back just now? Does this temple worship want to come and save the butcher? Whoa! At the last moment of life and death, these two monsters suddenly regained their consciousness before they were alive. Lin You felt that the whole person was not well. If only guessing before, then he is now almost certain that someone must have lived here. And just like him, a living person. This reminded him of what he had encountered in the battlefield of Wanji before. Those who were deprived of luck and infected into zombies. Isn't it the same as these two monsters? Wrong? Something seems to be wrong. Lin You suddenly rejected the conjecture in his heart, although this is very similar to the battlefield of 10,000 realms. But in retrospect, there are still many nuances. But really want to elaborate, he couldn't tell the difference for a while, and his thoughts were interrupted by two reminders. Kill the 8th Order Leader monster, and get 10,000 mana. Kill the 8th Order Leader monster, and get 10,000 mana. Finally dead. Lin You took a deep breath, and slowly came to the corpses of the two monsters. Although the blood was blurred, the water stains on the cheeks of the two could still be vaguely seen. I don't know if it was thick water or what. Standing silently for a long time, he asked the plants to drag the two corpses into the deep hole that had just been smashed out, and bury them into a mound with dirt. He had tried it before, and the flower of devouring couldn't devour the skills above the leader monster. At most, it could only devour energy and convert it into experience. And even if he could swallow it, he didn't intend to swallow the two corpses, just treat it as willful. After all, in this world full of killing, he didn't know how long he could keep his heart. Okay, let's rest first. Turning around and whispering to the plants, Lin You took Lynxy to the door of the church to investigate. Now that the two chiefs guarding the gate have been resolved, only the last church remains unexplored. It is inevitable that I am a little curious and looking forward to it. It is obviously not easy to have two leaders stationed there, so he didn't break in rashly, but carefully looked inside through the gap that had just collapsed into the eye. It is a spacious and empty church, kind of like what Western churches use for worship. Only, at this time, the interior of the church was completely decayed. Even the two rows of idols standing on the side collapsed, leaving only a pile of stone foundations and a few dilapidated pillars, all of which have faded away. However, Lin You was a little surprised. Despite this, the layout of the church is still very intact, and there is no sign of damage. Even those architectural ornaments were naturally weathered and turned into puffs of dust. Nothing at all. This is the conclusion that Lin You came to at a glance. This made him a little strange. Since there is nothing in the church, why are the two chief monsters still stationed outside? No matter how you think about it, it feels very strange. After observing outside for a while, after confirming that there is no danger, Lin You temporarily recalled all the plants to the territory, leaving only the smaller Lynxy and a few elves by his side. Then he mustered up his courage to pass through the gap, and walked into the church. All of a sudden, the line of sight became wider. The interior of the church is much larger than he imagined, and he can even see the faintly visible frescoes of faith on the walls. It's just that there is something weird everywhere, and people can't help but feel vigilant. Hey, what is that? Suddenly, Lin Yu's eyes fell on the largest statue, in the deepest part of the church. He didn't see it just now because of the angle of view. Now that I walked in, I suddenly found that there was an entrance to the underground. Could it be the emergency escape channel of the church, or the place where the secret meeting was held? Lin Yu was surprised. Taking a closer look, it was as he expected. There was a collapsed gravel next to the entrance of the cave. It seems that the floor of the secret entrance collapsed after being eroded for a long time, and the entrance was exposed. Otherwise, it would be difficult to find that there is a secret passage here if you don't look carefully. Obviously, the two leading monsters should be guarding this passage. That's right. It's just that I don't know what's hidden inside, and there are traces of black air around, so I can't see what's inside at all. Forbidden place for church nuns and monks, or a private darkroom where a bishop keeps slaves. All kinds of guesses appeared in Lin Yu's mind, making up the scene of the church before the accident happened. Originally, he should not have easily taken risks in such a location, but they've already come here, and I'm a little unwilling not to go in. If there is any treasure hidden in it, wouldn't he miss it in vain? Sometimes treasures are prepared for the courageous. Anyway, he has random teleportation, and then the big deal is to teleport and escape. Done. Finally, Lin Yu decided to explore this underground passage, and started to prepare by the side. Since the passage is relatively small, can only accommodate 5 or 6 people at the same time, so he gave up such large-sized units as the King Teng Kingyang Demon King Dragon. Except for a few troops around him, only a lantern grass was summoned for lighting, and cannons were used as emergency firepower. In addition, Lai Yangkui was used as an emergency exorcism, and he opened the way with 2 cactus boxers, who were blessed with the secret treasure of unyielding will. A temporary underground exploration team was formed in this way. This is also due to the fact that he has many types of arms, and he can find suitable arms to deal with any situation. If it were replaced by other lords with fewer types of arms, I would be directly stumped by this hole. You can't fight with a torch, can you? Come on, let's go in. When he was ready, Lin Yu walked through the entrance and slowly walked into the underground passage directly under the protection of the plants. After a while, he disappeared into the deep and dark entrance at the same time. In the sky outside the church, several lords suddenly appeared, and looked at the church built at the foot of the mountain in surprise. Strange. I remember that this place should have been a barren hill before. How could a church suddenly appear? I also remember that there seems to be no such building in this area. Could it be a hidden secret, or a mission? Hidden secret realm. Wouldn't there be some incredible reward? Then what are you waiting for? Go take a look first. With that said, a few people excitedly landed on the ground, and approached the courtyard outside the church carefully. The other side. Lin Yu, who passed through the underground entrance, soon came to a passage made of masonry. What surprised him was, this underground passage is wider than he imagined, and it is a mess. There were collapsed objects everywhere. It looked like it had been through a mess, and the walls were covered with bloodstains. It just doesn't fit in with the clean church outside. Could it be that when the disaster happened? What happened here? Lighting? Lin Yu didn't dare to be careless, and immediately let the lantern grass activate the fluorescent skill to illuminate the entire passage, and then moved on. Whoosh! At this moment, there was a sound of breaking through the air. A dark shadow suddenly rushed out, flying towards him from the darkness in the distance. Careful! Lin Yu was startled in his heart, and quickly activated the power of rules to condense a mirror wall on the entrance of the passage. Gu Yu! The next second, there was a muffled sound of bang, and the mirror wall cracked. Judging from this power, at least they are all 8th order monsters. However, because of this blocking, the plants reacted instantly, and the large attack immediately went straight to the shadow. However, what Lin Yu didn't expect was, in the face of such a dense attack, the shadow actually flashed, and jumped directly onto the wall, and then along the ceiling, over the 2 cacti balls. They burst towards him. Fortunately, Lin Xi responded in time. Just as the shadow was about to rush in front of him, with a wave of the staff, a thorn accurately entangled the shadow. Immediately afterwards, there were 2 bursts of fire. 2 fiery red streamers swept past, and with a pop sound, instantly penetrated the shadow's body, causing its struggle to stop abruptly. Sure enough, it was an 8th order monster. Lin Yu was stunned. It seems that this underground passage is not as safe as he thought. Involuntarily, his eyes fell on the corpse of the monster that had just been killed, and he couldn't help being slightly surprised. It was a strange reptile that looked like a human but was not human. Although it has a human-like head, it has 8 hands and feet. and it can climb on the wall like a spider. It looks a bit like a monster that was researched in private by some kind of scientific experiment. Good guy, nearly full agility. No wonder it was so fast. Even the chaos pollution level has reached the level of SS, and the attributes are higher than his proliferating body. It seems that he has to be careful. Let's go, move on. Whispering to the plants around him, he stepped over the sutured corpse and walked deeper. When passing by the sutured monster's corpse, Lin You also found that the blood flowing out of the monster was extremely corrosive, creating the entire floor into a deep pit. I really don't know what ritual it was to create such a monster. Without thinking much, I continued to move forward with the plants, and as they went deeper, the underground passages gradually became more complicated. Basically, every corner leads to several directions. It's like an underground labyrinth, and there are many dungeon-like rooms next to it. It's just that the guardrails of these dungeons have basically been destroyed, or they are intact, but there are piles of dead bones. On the way forward, there are more and more distorted monsters encountered. Greatly slowed down the team's progress. You can only explore while fighting, gradually approaching the deepest part of the passage at the same time. The lords who arrived later had also passed through the courtyard full of corpses and came to the church to explore around. Look, there's an underground passage there. Soon, one of the lords found the entrance to the passage next to the statue and exclaimed, "Be careful. There has just been a battle here, and it's obvious that someone has arrived before us. Those corpses outside look like they have just been left, so that person must have entered here, right? Is there really something good in it? It's very possible. Why don't we go in and take a look?" Agree. After all, a few people simply prepared outside and walked into the underground passage with their troops. After a www.www.lightnovel.com they saw the aberration corpse that Lin You had just left, and their expressions became solemn. Sure enough, someone has come in ahead of us. Looking at this corpse, the battle should have just happened not long ago. Isn't that just right? We can sneak behind and save a lot of effort. Hey, that's true. Maybe there will be a aureole at the back. Let's go. Let's follow quickly. Without talking nonsense, a few people directly stepped over the corpse, continued to go deep into the passage, and disappeared into the darkness in a blink of an eye. Lin You didn't know that someone was following behind him. At this time, he had already killed the distortion monsters along the way, and came to the deepest part of the passage, outside a huge underground church. With just one glance, Lin You was stunned by the scene in front of him, and his pupils suddenly shrank. What did he see? A terrifying lair that looks like an alien beast. As far as the eye can see, there are dried blood and thick water everywhere, just randomly piled on the surrounding walls and ceilings, forming huge holes. In those holes, a large number of distortion monsters are gathering and constantly wandering. This was not what shocked Lin You the most. What surprised him the most was that in the center of the underground church, a huge blue crystal was placed on top of a formation drawn with blood. In the crystal, there is a person sealed, a little girl less than 10 years old. Boom! A muffled sound echoed throughout the underground church. After more than 10 minutes of fighting, Lin You finally got rid of all the distortion monsters in the church, making the whole church quiet in an instant. Subsequently, he led the team into the church, came to the formation with the crystal sealed, and looked at it carefully. This formation is obviously a few years old. There are also skulls used to burn candles around, forming a circle around the formation. However, Lin You did not dare to step into the range of the formation rashly to avoid accidents. He looked through the crystal to the little girl with her eyes closed, and an interface popped up. Name: Alyssa Ireland. Lord. Race: undead. Level: Level 8, SSS. Strength: 4,500, plus 4,500. Physique: 4,500, plus 4,500. Agility: 4,200, plus 4,200. Spirit: 4,800, plus 4,800. Skills: Blood Curse, Blood Storm, Evil Eye of Death. Chaos: all attributes increased by 100%. Introduction: the butcher and the daughter of the temple sacrifice were sacrificed as the Eye of the Blood Curse ceremony. Awakened the blood of the blood-sucking ancestor, and sealed it in the formation, requiring fresh blood to wake up. Okay. It turned out to be a monster panel, and still a lord monster. Lin You frowned. He thought that this would be some kind of ancient taboo method, to keep the little girl, across the long river of time, waiting for one day to wake up again. Now it seems that he still thinks too much. I don't know how long this church has existed, and it is impossible for any living people to stay. Fortunately, this lord monster was sealed by the crystal and could not move. Otherwise, with such a perverted attribute in such a small underground space, he would be really difficult to deal with. And those 3 skills can be seen from the law system. Nearly 10,000 spiritual skills cast out of the legal system. One can imagine how terrifying it is. It is definitely much stronger than the spear spirit he encountered in the Tower of Sin before, and it is definitely not something he can deal with now. But just as he was about to turn around and leave, but suddenly I saw a golden treasure chest behind the formation. That's right, it's a treasure chest. As he had seen in the area before, the treasure chest containing rare troops tokens and various treasures was exactly the same. Could it be that? Lin Yu's eyes trembled suddenly, staring at the treasure chest that was out of tune with the surrounding environment and was full of brilliance. After observing for a while, I finally carefully bypassed the formation and came to the treasure chest, excited to open it. The treasure chest failed to open. The treasure chest is blocked by power and requires a medium to open. Can't open? Lin Yu was stunned. Looking around the treasure chest, there is indeed a faint blood around, protecting the treasure chest. Only above the keyhole, there is a cross slot, which seems to require some kind of prop to open. In doubt, he couldn't help but look around, looking for clues. But in the next second, a burst of air rang out. In the distant passage, a poisonous needle suddenly shot out, hitting him straight. Ooh. Lin Yu dodged the poison needle in one go, and suddenly looked up at the entrance of the passage. Immediately afterwards, 4 figures walked in from the passage with troops. It's not bad to be able to escape. Boy, hand over the treasure chest, and spare you not to die. I didn't expect that there would be a treasure chest here. It's developed now. These people were the lords who followed Lin Yu into the passage and had been quietly following him. Originally, I was thinking of finding a better opportunity to sneak attack on Lin Yu, but it turned out that there was a treasure chest here, so I couldn't help but take it directly. Lin Yu frowned as he looked at the 4 who appeared. He didn't expect that someone would follow him so soon, and the lord who leads the way is actually an 8th order. If there is a real fight, he probably won't get any benefits. The most important thing is that there is a terrifying SSS level lord next to him. If he accidentally breaks the seal, then he can only give up this treasure chest and escape. If you want it, come and get it yourself. Lin Yu's face was calm, and he silently retreated to the side, while secretly observing the types of troops around him, thinking about countermeasures. Boy, count your acquaintances. Be careful of giving up the treasure chest so easily. He is only one person. Where can he cheat? Go and bring the treasure chest. With that said, a few people filed in under the leadership of the 8th Order Lord, and walked straight towards the treasure chest with hot eyes. Lin Yu was completely ignored, and their attention was on the treasure chest, so they didn't check the little girl's information carefully, but walked straight into the range of the formation. Don't go in. Lin Yu's expression changed, and he suddenly recalled the last sentence of the little girl's introduction, and wanted to stop them, but still a step too late. After the 4 lords entered the range of the formation, the originally silent blood formation suddenly lit up with a light, covering them and the crystals. It also illuminated the entire underground church at once. What's going on? Why did this formation suddenly light up? Damn, boy, you dare to pit us? Goo woo. Something's wrong. Get out of here. Several lords exclaimed again, and immediately pulled away from the range of the formation. However, what greeted them was a blood-red beam of light rising into the sky, wrapping the entire edge of the formation. Then, 4 consecutive collisions sounded. The 4 lords slammed into the wall with one head, and were shocked and flew back, and fell a dog and 8 in the formation. Boom! The formation burst, and the red light soaring to the sky finally broke out completely, causing the entire underground passage to vibrate violently. In a blink of an eye, the ground cracked and rocks fell. It was as if catastrophe had come. What followed was the shrill screams of the 4 lords, which rang in the ears. Lin Yu looked at the formation in horror, and found that the 4 lords were all bound by the red light, floating in the air. The body is shrinking crazily at a considerable speed to the naked eye, and it has turned into 4 mummified corpses, in a blink of an eye. And even the 8th Order Lord was not spared, and the blood energy that was drained of blood turned into 4 torrents and merged into the crystal, and was sucked into the body by the little girl. The tightly closed eyes also suddenly opened at this time, and an endless burst of blood light erupted. Escape. This was Lin Yu's only thought at this time. Before he could think about it, he rushed out of the underground church with the plants and fled outside the passage. Without the obstruction of the distortion monster, he quickly escaped the passage and came outside. It was not until he left the church that he finally turned around. However, at this time, where is the figure of the church behind? The rotten walls, as well as the broken doors and windows, all turned into flying ash in the violent vibration, and turned into a glow. At the same time, a reminder suddenly sounded in his mind. Congratulations, you successfully activated the hidden secret realm, Blood Feast. This secret realm is an independent space, You can only leave after killing the Lord Monster. Puff. Lin You almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. Congrats to you. Can he not be lucky? Looking around, as the prompt said, the entire church courtyard has been covered by a blood-colored light curtain, and even the mountain behind it has disappeared. This is so special. It is to bring in prey to kill. Could it be that the person who built the formation had already thought of this scene? Don't hesitate. Try to contact the territory immediately. Fortunately, although this space is closed, it can still successfully contact the territory and successfully summon all the plants. And right now, the location of the church suddenly boomed, with a loud noise and completely collapsed. A figure surrounded by blood light slowly rose and floated in the sky. It is the Lord Monster that was sealed in the formation. They die for me. It was not clear whether it was a man or a woman's shrill howl, which exploded in the little girl's mouth. Her face was distorted. Like a madman, her eyes were pointing directly at Lin Yu's location, and the blood on her body was surging wildly. In an instant, a huge evil eye appeared in the air, bursting out with a large piece of demonic brilliance, shrouding the entire plant army. Lin Yu paled in shock, only to feel that the vitality of the plants was passing by rapidly, and one by one was wilting. Evil Eye of Death. As soon as the shot was made, the third skill was directly used. How dare he hesitate, when his mind moves? The elves in the team struggle to raise the staff high, burst out the power of nature, and restore the plants. At the same time, the treasure effect is triggered, and a transparent shield appears on all plants, which offsets 30% of their damage. But even so, the vitality of the plants is still fading away. The skills of the Lord Monsters are indeed terrifying. Quick! Interrupt her. Lin Yu turned his head and shouted at the forest sage. In the next second, an invisible force centered on the forest sage suddenly spread out all around. Together with the Lord Monsters in the air, they were all wrapped up, and the skills dissipated instantly. The evil eye in the air also disappeared. Go! Get rid of her! As soon as the effect of the peace domain was lifted, Lin Yu directly issued an order. The King Gong and the team roared, and a red light emerged from all the plants, surrounded by the Lord Monsters, and the sky-high attacks rushed into the sky. At this time, Lin Yu was trapped in the secret space, and he could only leave by killing the Lord Monster, so he could only fight. Cannon. Seeing that the Lord Monster raised his hand again, he immediately looked at the cannon that had gathered a large amount of fire around him. Just heard a loud bang. A bullet surrounded by dragon flames turned into a streamer, and swept straight towards the Lord Monster in the air. Under the blessing of the savage roar, the power of the cannon's blow can be described as incomparably powerful, as if the entire secret realm space will be torn apart. Bang! The blood flower exploded and scattered into a strange red flower in the air. The little girl's body was directly knocked out by this powerful impact, and half of her body was blown up. However, what Lin Yu didn't expect was that even so, there was still no kill notification in his mind. On the contrary, the blood energy floating in the air quickly gathered, and the little girl's body was restored to its original state, in a blink of an eye. Reaching out a hand, more than a dozen plants in front of them burst open one after another, turning into pools of green water. The attacks of other plants were also blocked by them, and they flew high into the sky again. Looking at the unscathed little girl, Lin Yu was full of shock. He had thought that this Lord Monster would be very strong, but he didn't expect it to be so strong. Is this what the introduction said? The horror of awakening the blood of the blood-sucking ancestors? As long as there is blood energy, there is no way to kill. Immortality and immortality. This is not the characteristic of the blood-sucking ancestor.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.